Today I'm going to show you how to construct the geometric figure known as the golden rectangle using the computer program, the Geometers Sketchpad. We use the Geometers Sketchpad in geometry at Virginia Tech to allow us to create visual representations of the proofs that we write for class. The first step in creating the golden rectangle is to create a line segment that is straight. To create a straight line segment, select the line segment tool from your menu and then construct a segment by clicking once on the screen to start your line segment and stretching to the left or right with your mouse until this segment is the desired length and then clicking once more. To ensure that your line is perfectly horizontal, hold down the Shift key while stretching, and this will ensure that your line is perfectly horizontal. Now we need to create perpendicular lines at either endpoint so that we have the basis of a square. To do this, use the arrow tool and select the line segment plus one of its two endpoints. Now, use the option under the Construct menu of Perpendicular Line, and this will create a line that is perpendicular to your original segment at the desired endpoint. Now repeat the same process using the segment's other endpoint so that we have three sides of our square. In order to ensure that we can create a perfect square, the next step is to mark off on either perpendicular line a length that is the same length as our original segment. The easiest way to do this in Geometers Sketchpad is to create a circle centered at either endpoint with a radius length equal to that of our original segment. The easiest way to do this is to select our segment plus one of the two endpoints, and then under the Construct menu, choose Circle by Center by Radius. You will see that it creates a circle that is intersecting both your other endpoint of your line segment and a perpendicular line. Mark the intersection of this circle with your perpendicular line at one point using the point tool. You'll know you are selecting the intersection if both your line and the circle turn red when you hover your mouse over that position. Next, repeat the same process by creating another circle centered at the opposite endpoint that intersects with the other perpendicular line. Once again, mark the circle's intersection with your perpendicular line using the point tool. Now, select both of these points using the arrow tool, and under the Construct menu, choose Line. This constructs a perfectly straight line through these 2 points and ensures that your square has a perfectly straight base. You can now see that we have a square, but it's a little hidden by the circles that we used to help create it. To make your square more visible, using your arrow tool, select these 2 circles, and then under this display menu, choose Hide Circles. Now you can see your square a little clearer, but it's still kind of hard to make out where the square is with all these extra lines. To make your square easier to see, choose each of the 4 vertices of your square, and under the Construct menu, choose Segments. This will create 4 solid segments and turn the rest of your lines into dashed lines to make them slightly less distracting. You could also choose to hide the rest of these lines if you wish, but I like to have them here because I will use them a little bit later on in the construction. The next step in creating the golden rectangle is to find the midpoint of one of the sides of these square. To do this, deselect everything by clicking anywhere on the screen, and then select one of the sides of your square. I like to choose the bottom side because it's easier to work with. Once you have that segment selected, using the Construct menu, select Midpoint. Now that you have a midpoint, you can use your line segment tool to connect your midpoint to the top right corner of your square and create this. This will create a right triangle that has a length that is equal to that of the golden ratio. To do this, choose the line segment tool and then click first on the midpoint and then on the top right vertice of your square. The next step in creating a golden rectangle is to create a circle centered at the midpoint of your line with the length that is equal to the length of the hypotenuse of the right triangle you just created. To do this, use the arrow tool, select the midpoint and the hypotenuse, and once again, create a circle by center by radius. You will notice that this newly created circle intersects with the line that forms the bottom of your square in 2 points. Choose the point that is visible on your screen and mark its intersection using the point tool. Next, create a segment that connects the bottom of your square to this newly created point. Now you want to finish your rectangle by creating a line that is perpendicular to this newly created point. To do this, use your arrow tool, select your point and your segment, and under the Construct menu, choose Perpendicular once again. The next step in creating our rectangle is to extend the top of our square so that it intersects with this newly created perpendicular line. The easiest way to do this is to select the 2 points that make up the top of our square and under the Construct menu, choose Line so that it extends this segment in either direction infinitely until it intersects with our newly created perpendicular line. Next, using the Point tool, mark the intersection of this line with the perpendicular line that we created previously. The next step in ensuring that we have constructed the golden rectangle properly is to hide all of this extra information that is on our screen and obscuring our rectangle. To do this, use the arrow tool and select the dashed lines and the circle, and under the display menu, choose Hide. It is now easier to see that we have constructed a rectangle. To ensure that this rectangle is constructed in the golden ratio, first measure the length of one side of your square and then the entire length of the top of your rectangle. To do this, select each segment, one at a time, that you need to measure, and using the Measure option, measure the length. If you have properly constructed the golden ratio, when you use the Calculate option, dividing the length of the entire top of the rectangle by the length of any side of the square will give you an answer that is very close to 1.618, which is the rounded off version of phi, the golden ratio. To do this, under the number menu, choose Calculate, and then choose the length of the top of your rectangle divided by the length of the side of your square. You will see on the calculation that the calculation you get is 1.61803. This is approximately equal to phi. When you click OK, it will create a new measurement on your screen, but it will be rounded off to 1.62 because that's how Geometers Sketchpad defaults. If you'd like it to show a more accurate decimal location, right-click on this measurement and choose Properties. And then you can choose what precision you would like the measurement to have, up to the 100,000th place. And that is how you create the golden rectangle using the Geometers Sketchpad.